Right, so evening everybody. We make it 7 o'clock on the Wednesday, so it is day three of Operation Respond 2026, and I'm joined this evening by I didn't check the pronunciation of your
It's
name. Are you a Nola?
Nola. Yeah, Nola
Nola.
Beehl.
Hello, Nola.
Hi,
So
Imogen.
nice to have Nola joining us, as I just said, for the first time from Realise. So for this evening's webinar, Nola's going to share with you her presentation now. And I assume, Nola, that Harry's already spoken to you about the fact that our format is we talk for a bit and then we open up the floor for questions. And I'll see all the chat, so I'll be able to help facilitate when we get to the question stages. So if
Brilliant.
everyone can pop their questions in the chat as they go along, and we'll get to the questions towards, well, nearer to 8 o'clock, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So,
Over to
hi
you.
everyone. Yeah, so my name's Nola from Realise Training. I'm a partnership manager there. So, just to tell you a little bit about myself before I begin. So, I work in the early years unit at Realise Training, and we support with apprenticeships and a range of different early years qualifications. My background is also early years, so I've worked in a range of settings, including day nurseries, special educational needs provision. I worked in children and young people services before then coming to be a trainer assessor and then a partnership manager. So I'm hopefully bringing all my experience of all the different sort of avenues of early years and the kind of ways that we can support to help you grow. So I'm hoping you are all curious about how to grow a stronger future focused team. So we're just going to look at a few points together this evening, hopefully to give a little bit more understanding on that and how important it is and how we can sort of support that for the future generation, really. So in this session, we're going to look a little bit more about finding out how apprentices can shape and strengthen your team culture. So how those apprentices can give fresh perspectives, energize your team, support the team culture, and really help to build and grow your settings, as well as, like I say, the future workforce that we have. And how that then supports the growth and development as well of future leaders. So by investing in apprentices, we can help to develop them through, not just for that initial qualification or apprenticeship, but to then see them right through to maybe being your future room leaders, your deputies, your managers, and really move them through that process. And then finally, we're hopefully going to bust a few myths along the way. I'm sure you've all probably heard about a range of different apprenticeship myths and who they're for or who they're not for, or why they are beneficial or not. So along the session tonight, I'm hoping that we can cover all of those and answer any questions that you might have. Okay. So a little bit more about growing your own workforce. I think this is a really important point to make, that we can do that by supporting the staff that we currently have, our existing staff, as well as new. And that really helps you to develop a pipeline of qualified future staff and leaders as well. So looking at a little bit more detail around how we can grow that workforce, because we can start them off with that, as the picture shows, that tiny little seed that grows and they develop and they flourish into that really great practitioner that will support with learning and development, and that will hopefully be, like I say, that future leader. When we do grow our own apprentices as well, that means that we can really shape them. So if we're shaping our staff, we can shape them into your organisation's values, your needs, and your team culture as well. And sometimes that can be a difficulty if we have people coming into the setting that are new, that actually they can bring a lots of different ideas. But if we're growing our own and we're developing them and doing those qualifications whilst they're settling in with us and we're inducting them, we can develop and build all those good cultures and values that we want within our own setting. It also helps with consistency as well. So hopefully, if we've grown them and we are giving them that support and training and development, that we're going to have that consistent member of staff, that qualified member of staff that then we retain and they stay with us. But there's also lots of other benefits as well of growing your own workforce. One of those would include reducing recruitment challenges and costs. As a lot of you will probably know at the moment, Within the earlier sector, trying to find qualified level threes is really difficult. There is a crisis, there is a shortage, and sometimes that can present a real difficulty for nurseries at the moment. So by growing your own, you are sort of preventing that issue, and also the costs relating to that can be limited. Not just financial cost, but it's also that cost of time, because we all know that if we are trying to advertise, interview, induct, support, that's a long process sometimes. It takes up a lot of time and effort to find those qualified members of staff, and then sometimes they don't stay with us. Whereas if we're growing our own, we can spend that time, that money, that focus on taking on an apprentice and developing them that stay with us. The apprenticeship costs as well are lower for recruiting. So, for example, at Realise Training where I work, we have a learner recruitment team that can support that for free for yourselves. So there are those ways that we can try and reduce those costs as well to you. And strengthening organisational stability as well. So if we've taken on, for example, a level 2 apprentice, but then they remain and stay with us as a level 3, and then they move on to be a level 5, and maybe they move all the way through the setting where they take on increased responsibilities and roles. So maybe they become a room leader, maybe they become our deputy, it could be they go on to be management, that actually we've then kept that person. We haven't got those continual costs of keeping recruiting new members of staff or replacing staff, if we're growing that gradually throughout. And it also gives stability to your team as well, because they are familiar with that person, they see that development and that progression opportunity, but it's stable because we know that person is there for some time and that hopefully they're going to remain with us. One of the other points that I did want to talk about of growing your own workforce and some of the benefits as well of having apprentices and training and developing your own staff relates to Ofsted. Some of you have probably been hearing lots of things about the recent Ofsted. Some of you may have had the new inspection frameworks, having a look at the new gradings and what that means for us in earlier settings. And one of those main benefits of having apprentices or growing our own comes under the leadership and governance section. So if any of you have had a little look at the Ofsted toolkit yet, if you look, I think it's across from page 50 to about page 55, it covers the section around leadership and governance and how we're meeting those new gradings. And we are all wanting to aim at least for that expected, but the good and hopefully exceptionals. But within that, to achieve that expected and the good standards, then what we are needing to show and demonstrate within the leadership and governance is how we articulate change. So how we do that within our teams. And one of those ways that we can find that easier to do is if we've grown and developed that team ourselves. If that workforce have been with us, we've built those culture and values as we've trained them and supported them ourselves, that is more readily going to be shown when we have that inspection. Having clear ambitions and vision is also really important within that leadership and governance, and it covers around having a positive impact as well. So having strong professional learning opportunities is important under that section. It talks about having a culture of continuous improvement and development. So that is about how we continue and show that we are developing our staff, how we are also then encourage them to reflect and ask questions and develop. And that is much easier when we do an apprenticeship. When I talk a little bit about the apprenticeship requirements and how we support apprenticeships in a minute, that is something that is really going to be covered all the time, and that'll be something that's much easier demonstrated. And it also helps the rest of the staff within that team to also be doing that, because if you are supporting that apprenticeship and they're asking questions and you're reflecting on development and progression, hopefully that builds that culture of learning and curiosity within your team as well. And under the curriculum and teaching section, under the Ofsted toolkit. I think, again, if you go pages 20 to 23, within there, it's looking at consistency of the education and high quality delivery and expectations of the teaching and the interactions that are embedded throughout the nursery, and making sure that that is shown throughout each room and age group. And that is, again, something that if we've developed and grown our own workforce and we've embedded all of that, that hopefully we should be demonstrating that every day within the practice, and that those apprentices will have been learning that from all of their colleagues as they're moving through their qualification. So they're just a few of the benefits of growing our own workforce. But a little bit more about the benefits of apprenticeships as well, and the importance and impact. I was just going to ask if anybody has done an apprenticeship before, or whether they currently maybe have an apprentice. You might have previously had an apprentice. Imogen, I don't know if anybody's commented in there.
Well, we have an apprentice. I think we have somebody doing an apprenticeship, shall we say?
Yeah.
And it's far more involved than I think the training company told us before we had one. I'll tell you that.
Yes, and I think that's it. When I talk about requirements in a minute, there is a lot of support for an apprentice and how we support their apprenticeship, but it is the benefit and the importance of it that we really focus on. I myself have done an apprenticeship throughout my training as well, and found it really beneficial. One of the benefits is that we then have skilled employees. So if we have, if we've had that person and we've supported them from the beginning, we know the skills that they have because we've helped them gain them and we've trained them. So it helps because within the apprenticeship, it's a more of a hands-on experience. So it's about, as we said earlier, fitting them to your company culture, your values, and you put all of that training into that apprentice then. It also helps them to develop confidence as well and have better skills. And in turn, that hopefully helps them to have confidence and also aspirations then to develop within their career. And that sort of usually has a really nice impact as well on the rest of their colleagues when they see the confidence coming from that apprentice that they've trained or supported, and that supports the whole team as well. As we mentioned earlier, a little bit about cost-effective training. So apprenticeships can be a really good way of being cost-effective for yourselves to train and get a qualified member of staff. So for apprenticeships, we can, if you're a small to medium employer with less than 50 employees, you can, if you've got an 16 to 21-year-old, you can sometimes get all of the funding for that apprenticeship. For over 21s, the employer just pays 5% of that training cost. So it's a minimal amount. And if you happen to be a part of a larger provider and you have a levy pot, then that comes straight out of your levy. So it can be a really cost-effective way of just spending a smaller amount of money to get that qualification and that qualified member of staff. Some of the research and stats I was looking at earlier, there was some reports on the gov.uk and a Martin's Company group that had done some research around apprenticeships and things like the money saving costs of apprentices. And they looked at, as well as the cost of that actually for every £1 spent on an apprentice, it brings £21 to the UK economy. And it also, for example, supports with staff retention and loyalty as well. So we can see there's lots of benefits, as well as the cost-effective training, that it's a reduced amount for training. There is also some other benefits, like 16 to 18-year-olds, there is £1,000 incentive that your employers would receive. If they're under 25, you also have national insurance contributions reduced or not having to be paid for those members of staff as well. So there are some savings to yourself as well if you're taking on an apprentice or supporting an apprentice. So they're just some of the benefits. And a new member of staff that is qualified already can actually be a 30% cost increase to an apprentice. So we could just see some of those savings that you can make by having apprentices. And apprenticeships can be offered not just to new members of staff, that can also be to your existing members of staff as well. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. It also includes staff retention and loyalty. So as we said before, if you are training and supporting that member of staff, then we are more likely to retain them. They're more likely to stay with us because they've built those relationships with us, we've supported them. Again, that same study that I was looking at before says that 95% of apprentices stay for 3 years following on from their apprenticeship. So actually we're retaining that member of staff. And if we also train them and they continue and complete higher level apprenticeships, such as level 5, then we may retain them for many years within our settings. So it's another way of trying to combat that crisis of having an early years educator and qualified staff. They also bring fresh perspectives to our settings. So those apprentices are receiving the most current and up-to-date training from their providers. They're learning all about the current frameworks, the most current theories. And so in that means that they can then share all of those brand new ideas, theories, practices, whereas we may have staff that have been here for a very long time and they can bring in those ideas. They can help to, like I say, share that, help to reflect together. So again, that helps the whole staff team to become curious about learning, to develop. It can challenge sometimes some of your existing members of staff, because I had an example a couple of years ago with an apprentice, and he learnt about a range of different theories. So then he decided he was going to go in and look at the curriculum and actually how that linked to theory, and actually he thought maybe a change would be beneficial in the room. So we went to the room leader and spoke about what he'd learned, how he thought it could work in practice, and they actually took him up upon that and made those changes. So it can give some really new ideas as well to our current staff as well. It helps as well with our future workforce planning, because we can then also look long-term planning that actually maybe next year that person will now be a qualified level 3, and then we don't need another qualified member of staff employed, or that we are then maybe progressing them into a future role such as a room leader. So it really helps us again to look at how we can support that long-term within the setting. And it gives really good career progression as well. So that's around giving them those different qualifications so that they can see that there are opportunities for progression within early years, whether that be from level 2, level 3, level 5, or even right onto our degrees, our early years teacher status. And apprentices can be supported all the way through with these different levels, and a range of various professions as well that can be supported within early years, and showing that it's not just a level 2 or 3. There are lots of different career pathways as well within early years when they do take on that training and learning. One of the other final points I just wanted to talk about on this part was just about the actual social impact it also has as well when we have apprentices. If we are upskilling our staff and giving them training and qualifications, then we're more likely to have higher employment in our settings, in our communities, in our areas. And that increases with then higher wages, which means we have local spending happening, which means we have stronger local businesses, which then means that we have prosperity, and it's that whole cycle. So by supporting the development of your staff and the training and using apprenticeships, we can really also support not just your own business to develop and grow, but actually it's supporting that whole social impact and that community as well. So what I'm just going to talk about now is a little bit about how we support an apprentice. So Imogen, I know you said you have an apprentice at the moment. So is there any things, or anybody else, if they're on here, anything that they know about what we need to do to support an apprentice? Or the kind of things that you've said, Imogen, because I know you said you've got lots of, it's been more than you maybe thought.
Yeah, I think so. I think the preparation before your apprentice starts, really knowing what's involved in getting an apprentice to be successful would be helpful. And also the people who buddy up with the apprentice. The people who
Mm,
do the informal training, they need support in order to know what an apprentice is not. Because I think if there's misunderstanding there, then if the training is delivered differently than perhaps it was 10, 15, 20 years ago, then that's sometimes unhelpful. So I think training
mm.
providers can do often do a lot more to support an apprentice rather than just support the apprentice.
Yes. And I think sometimes, like you say, it is that understanding of what is actually going to be required before you take that apprentice on. I know when we start an apprentice, we talk to the manager around the requirements, what's going to be expected, but actually how we even get them onto that apprenticeship, because that sometimes can seem like a bit of a process at the start of making sure that we are doing all the initial assessments and putting them onto the appropriate levels. So it's about all of those clear expectations, isn't it? Both for the apprentice and the manager and the setting, and that everybody understands what is going to happen during that apprenticeship, and giving a structured induction as well, not just from the training provider side, but also making sure that if it is a brand new person to your setting, that they have a clear induction process so that they settle in and they understand all the expectations. That could be slightly different if it's an existing member of staff that is doing an apprenticeship with you, because hopefully they've done all their induction, they understand all the policies and procedures, but also then what we're going to be learning and training them in. As part of supporting an apprentice as well, we need to make sure that they're receiving regular feedback. And that's important because that helps that apprentice to grow and develop. It supports as well with planning for any particular support needs, any extra training we might have. And we have review meetings. So, as part of the government requirements, they should have a review meeting every 12 weeks. And that should be a tripart review meeting, which is between the manager or employer, the apprentice, and the training provider, usually the assessor or the trainer, to make sure that they are supporting that apprentice appropriately, setting them targets and tasks, and making sure that they're achievable and they're getting all the right support throughout the training. It's also about giving time, and you'll probably know that if you have an apprentice before yourself or currently, that we do need to provide that time for that training, giving them hands-on learning within the rooms and within the setting, and providing the off-the-job training time. They keep changing the terminology, so some of you will know it as off the job, some of you now know it as a new terminology of apprenticeship training time. But it is basically that time where we're giving them to develop the knowledge, skills, and behaviours they need to complete that apprenticeship and their qualification.
That's
It's also,
interesting, Nola. Has
yeah,
that recently changed for a reason, do we think?
I think just the wording and the language, because some people were getting a little bit confused. I think if you go on the government website, you'll see both probably use off the job and apprenticeship training in places. But
Yeah.
I think people were getting mixed up with off the job, thinking that actually, well, that's out of work hours, they've got to do it in the evening or whatever it might be.
Yeah,
Off,
in the staff room. Yeah, I've heard of
yeah,
that. So
but
maybe it's a
off.
more descriptive title now.
Yes, and it's actually in their working hours, but it's things that aren't their normal job role, but it's where they're learning. So that training time where they are learning and developing the knowledge, skills, behaviours they need for their role and for the qualification. And I think that's just why sometimes the terminology can be a bit confusing. So
And it's still 20% of their hours, is it?
roughly 20%. So the government have just literally updated some of the standards for early years as from January, and the off the job or apprenticeship training hours have slightly changed. So for the level two, that is now a requirement of 300 hours over their programme. I'll talk about the programme lengths in a bit when I
Mm,
talk about the qualification. It still roughly works out as around 20% or roughly 6 hours a week of that training time. But
hmm
yeah, the level two, 300 hours. The level three is now 370 hours. And if they're doing a level five apprenticeship, then it's 466 hours. It sounds
Lovely.
a lot, but actually, if you think all of the knowledge and skills they're learning, they're covering all of that all the time.
Mm.
If you have a new member of staff, brand new, just starting their induction and training with you, every day they're going to be learning. they're going to be developing skills. So actually, it's quite easy if it's a newer member of staff and apprenticeship to complete those off-the-job hours at the beginning. If they're an existing member of staff, they are still going to be developing those, because hopefully what we are doing is we are upskilling them. And especially if they're taking on a different role, for example, like a room leader role, and they may be doing their level 5, that is all going to be brand new learning and development for them as well. Thank you. And then it's about that supervision and training as well. So providing that time to make sure that they're getting the training, the supervision from, whether it be the manager or it could be, we'll talk about mentors and buddies a bit later, and to support the endpoint assessment activities. So again, for the different levels, they are slightly different, but for level 2, level 3 and level 5 early years, they have an observation in practice and a professional discussion with a portfolio of evidence. The level 5 also has them, but they also then have presentation and questions around a bit of a project that they do. So it's around supporting that apprentice so that they develop all of those knowledge, skills, behaviours they need to be able to demonstrate those by the end of the endpoint assessment. A little bit more on the role of the manager and employer. So some of these are very similar, but obviously it's about providing that protected time for that apprenticeship training, or the off-the-job time as we referred to it before. So it's about making sure that we are planning that in. When we deliver that, for example, with our apprentices, we have a curriculum and we have a training plan where we identify all the different types of activities and roughly the amounts of times that would take every month for them to achieve. So that can be broken down, and hopefully the provider will go through that with you and with the apprentice at the beginning so they can see how they can achieve that as well. As we mentioned before, the manager giving that induction and the ongoing support, and assigning a mentor or a buddy as well. And that's important because there's that one person there then to support them, taking part in those performance reviews. And another key part of being a role of a manager or an employer is supporting and promoting the well-being and mental health support as well. We do know that obviously people can find it a huge change at first when they may be starting a new job role, and they may be learning as well at the same time, and it's about how we support them with their well-being to make sure that they are okay as they're learning. Within Realise training, for example, as well, we have a safeguarding and wellbeing team that can offer extra support and help to our apprentices if they need it as well. So there's different provisions we can put in place. With regards to mentoring, we would encourage you to have a mentor or an assigned buddy for your apprentice. And that could be yourself as the manager, it could be the deputy, it could be their room leader, but somebody there that is going to support them, because they're that trusted point of contact for that apprentice, the person that they can go to if they've got a problem, if they need some support and help. Maybe they're a trainer or assessor has set them a task and they're not quite sure, or they need to be shown how to do something. They've got that person there that's in the room with them or is able to spend that time showing them. And that also means that if that person's in place, then that will support with open lines of communication between the apprentice, the manager, the trainer. So everybody hopefully then is working together to get the best for that apprentice. Helping them to link the theory to practice as well. So with respect to that, it could be that they've learned something within their qualification. Maybe they've attended a webinar, some training sessions on something, but that mentor can then help to show them how that works in practice in the room. And being that really good role model as well for them. So demonstrating the best professional behaviours within the workplace so that they can see how that's demonstrated and how they should be behaving and what's expected of their role and responsibilities. We've also got monitoring progress and help problem solve. So if, for example, the manager can't attend that review meeting with the trainer and apprentice, then the mentor, and actually sometimes the mentor is the best person to do that because they're maybe spending more time with that person. They are supporting with all their learning so they can see the progress, if there's any areas that maybe they need extra support on or to help them with. and also supporting with the coaching and facilitation of that. So it might be that the trainer requests that, can they please be shown, for example, how to fill out this accident form or how to do a risk assessment, and then the mentor can spend that time coaching and supporting them on that. They can also support and encourage that reflection time. We also encourage the mentors, if they can, to have a little catch up with their apprentice every week if possible. It might just be a few minutes, but that then gives that little bit of time between them to have that discussion around, how are things going? Are you doing okay? Do you need some support? Do you need more challenge, for example? So it gives that time, as well as supporting their well-being and their confidence building, because they've got that person there that they know they can turn to for that support and help.
Do you tend to find, Nola, that
Mm.
mentors get a lot from apprentices as well as the other way around?
Yes, because obviously, like I said, the apprentices may be coming to them with new ideas and training and skills, or they're questioning. We have had again instances where the apprentices are actually questioning things and saying, well, but why do we do it this way? Or has this always been the case? And that helps to actually the mentor to look at those and maybe review their own practice, or actually, could we change something? Is this the best way we're doing things? It gives them all those skills. We actually have as well some coaching and mentoring training happening as well this year. Some level 3s, level 4s, and level 5s in coaching and mentoring that we can
Yeah.
offer. They're not
I
as
can think that'd be quite important because you
mm,
might think you know who should be your apprentice's mentor, but
yeah,
actually it probably takes a particular skill set to be a good mentor, doesn't it?
it does. And we're starting to run in the next month or two a sort of a short hour and a half session on what is a mentor and the difference between mentoring and coaching and how to support apprentices. But then there is equally the more intensive qualifications, if that's then something
If somebody
that,
wants to do that. Yeah,
yeah,
brilliant.
yeah. And yeah, and it is really important, because I think we sometimes don't always think about it, but yeah, they are there on hand. They are training that person as well as their assessor and trainer, giving them all of those skills as well. Yeah. And the apprentice, hopefully, should be engaging with all of that. We do hope that they are taking on board that on-the-job training that they're being shown in the room, as well as any off-the-job training activities or apprenticeship training activities, whether that be attending their webinars, attending their sessions with a trainer, completing any tasks that have been set, and really taking ownership of learning. That is important as the apprentice, that they are making sure they are taking that ownership. They, for example, are recording what they're learning. So, for example, with our learners, we use an online e-portfolio system called OneFile. And within there, they have a journal that they need to be recording their learning in. And that is, again, part of an apprenticeship requirement, that every month they must demonstrate that they've learned something towards those knowledge, skills, behaviours of that qualification. And completing the endpoint assessment activities. So hopefully what we're doing is preparing them so that they feel confident when they get to the end to be able to successfully complete that observation and professional discussion and achieve their apprenticeship. A little bit more about trainer expectations. So these all, again, link in with all the things we've talked about with the manager and apprentice role, but it's about supporting the development of the apprentice's knowledge, skills, and behaviours. So within the standard of each qualification, for example, the early years educator level 3, you'll see all of the knowledge, skills, behaviours they need to develop over that time. And the trainer should be really supporting them with that. So supporting them with the very best practices, giving them that training and guidance on, it could be, like we said, the curriculum, the UIFS framework, and making sure that that is linked to their standard, but also that it's high quality and it's linking to their actual job role. So they're learning things that they need and they are using in practice. The trainer should be engaging regularly with the apprentice. So, for example, our trainers should be in contact, having a session with the apprentice every month. So, whether that be face to face at the nursery or an online Teams call. And the apprentices also have a webinar session each month with a teaching session as well. So, making sure as well, in between those sessions, if they need any extra support, they're on hand via email or phone calls or messages, things like that. They should be part of that whole review and feedback process, as we mentioned earlier. and supporting that learner and making sure they're recording all the apprenticeship training time and giving them feedback on that. So in their journals every month, they should be recording that learning, and that trainer should be giving them the feedback so that they can see if there's any areas for development or anything else they need support on.
So
Is there any
important because
questions on that?
it's so important. I think it was yesterday I heard of a sad tale where somebody was at, I think, 4% and they should be at 30%
Right.
progress, you do wonder whether trainers sort of recognize the value of keeping the
Mm,
employer up to speed as to the progress that is or isn't being made
yeah.
towards the apprenticeship goals, because I think people will often give the impression that everything's fine when everything is anything but fine.
Mm. And that is part of what that whole feedback and review process as well, because every 12 weeks, that feedback should be going back of where they are on their training. Are they
Mm.
behind on their off the job recording? Are they behind on their progress on their standard
Yeah.
or anything like that? So that
And
should step back.
am I
And they,
right in thinking, Nola, that tripartite meetings are common to all apprenticeships, regardless of what level?
yeah,
Yeah,
it doesn't matter what level or what apprenticeship you're doing. It could be early
yeah,
years, it could be something completely different. You could be doing
yeah.
HR or you could be
So if you
doing
don't take
management.
part in it, you probably don't get to find out, and therefore you've got yourself to
Yeah.
blame if you didn't know.
Yeah, and but equally as well, that trainer should be contacting. So if you cannot, for example, for any reason, make that review meeting, they should still be trying to get that regular feedback from yourselves,
Mm,
which is where sometimes that mentor or buddy can come in place of the manager. If we all know managers at nurseries are so busy, they've got a million and one jobs to do. Sometimes they're covering in the room, whatever it might be, but making sure there is that time to share that. Um,
yeah,
with our apprentices as well, the managers or the mentor can have access to their one file. So they can directly log in, they can see exactly where they are on progress. Are they behind on progress, or are they on target? How many hours have they recorded? Have a look at their journals. So that is another way of tracking and supporting as well. Yeah.
that's very interesting. Thank you.
So any ideas? What would anybody else say is part of maybe an effective apprenticeship? Is there anything you think should really be included or would
You
help?
can post your answer in the chat, folks.
So, effective apprenticeships should, as we said before, when we're talking about the training provider requirements as well, should align with the job role and the apprenticeship standard. So, it should include all of those knowledge, skills, behaviours that they need for that job role. Also, having that strong partnership. So, we just talked about the importance of the involvement of the employer, the mentor, the apprentice, the trainer all together. There should be that collaboration, that partnership between everybody so that we're all working together for the best, so that that apprentice achieves and hopefully they get a distinction as well at the end. It's about those high quality learning opportunities as well. So not just providing those opportunities, but can we give them really good quality opportunities? Can we give them extend and challenge as well as part of that in their off the job and on the job training activities that they're doing to make sure that they're getting a full experience and getting that full support that they need for the training? And also regular monitoring, feedback, reflection time. So that is part of an effective apprenticeship, as we've said already, making sure they're involved in those reviews, that they do get that time to reflect on practice, not just with their trainer, but with yourselves as well at the setting, because that can be really beneficial for them.
Yeah.
And that helps the apprentice then to really feel valued as well as part of your team. Sometimes, yeah, you hear sad stories where the apprentice says, "Oh, I don't really feel valued. All I do is go and, wash the pots and that's it,
Mm.
and do all of those kind of cleaning jobs." Whereas if we are really training and developing that apprentice and we're giving them all of those opportunities, they are going to really feel valued and a member of that team. And that in turn helps with growing that workforce, doesn't it? And making sure that they stay with us. We retain those members of staff as well.
And would it be fair to say that it requires both the apprentice and the line manager to be aligned, because a line manager can't drag somebody through an apprenticeship
No.
kicking and screaming. If the apprentice doesn't want to be there, then they play a huge part in whether the apprenticeship is effective. I've heard
Mm.
of line managers who had the best of intentions and created the most, wonderful opportunities, but the apprentice, wasn't really switched on to childcare, was
Mm.
there just to go through the motions, was wanting to do the minimum, didn't
Yeah.
want to take, challenge, wanted to
Mm.
just, get the qualification and do something else. So I think it does take two sides for an effective apprenticeship. It's not just about what the employer signs up for. It's whether the young person or the person who's doing the apprenticeship wants to do the apprenticeship.
Exactly. And that's why it's important, as we mentioned at the beginning, the expectations at the beginning, explaining actually what is included and required of the apprenticeship. Because, yeah, we don't want somebody 3 months in saying, "Oh, this isn't at all what I want to do, and it's not what I
Mm,
expected." And yeah, making it clear at the beginning that actually these are the requirements, and when we do our induction, we go through with the apprentices exactly what's expected. So at that point, they can say, actually, maybe this isn't for me. But we hope that obviously, like you say, that they will engage with that, because it is really important to be able to now complete and achieve everything that they have to do for that apprenticeship. Um, Sometimes people used to think it was the easy way out to do an apprenticeship, wasn't it, rather than go to college. But actually, I think it's a lot more beneficial to get that hands-on experience and
mm,
skills, but they do need to recognise there is also some work that's involved in it. Yeah. Having those clear goals and milestones, as that sort of links in really as well, that they know exactly what goals and objectives they're working towards and how we can support them with that. But also equally as part of an effective apprenticeship as a provider as well. Um, if you are, for example, unhappy with your provider, not a lot of settings know that if you want to, you can transfer your apprentice to another provider. You can transfer
mm,
that funding elsewhere. So if you are not getting the experience that you want, that is something that even when someone is part way into their apprenticeship, you can do.
mhm.
Is there any questions on anything else on there before I move on?
My question on that would be, I mean, I've only heard of people transferring because perhaps the apprenticeship provider has gone bust or
Yeah.
disappeared. So if an apprenticeship provider isn't performing and the apprentice is making progress through the apprenticeship, it's still possible. Do you take care of the transfer and make sure it's
Yeah.
smooth?
Yeah, so if, for example, like you say, you're not getting the experience, that learner's not getting support, they're not making progress, then yes, we can support with that transfer, and we would just take what current learning they've already done, what current funding that's maybe been used already, and then we just transfer across. So there is a whole process where we can support and do that, not just for providers that have disappeared and gone.
Yeah,
Um,
fabulous.
so we're just going to hopefully move on to a little bit on some myths and versus realities. So I've got a little bit of a poll of a few questions just to raise, if I can get you to maybe have a little bit of a look at them. So
That's
just answering true and false. So the first question, they're only for young people. I don't know what everybody thinks about that. It's a common question, isn't it? Or thought that actually an apprenticeship is only for those, 16 to 18-year-olds, those leaving school. But an apprenticeship is actually for anybody. The apprenticeships can be for anyone from any age range, 16 plus. And it's about not just, like we said, brand new learners, it is also about those that maybe are existing members of staff as well. So it could be, for example, those that are then moving on to the next qualification, the management, the room leader. So yeah, so we've got a bit of a mixture there. We've got one yes and a few no's. Yep, that's great. Yeah, so I'd say no, not just for young people. They're only for new staff. So yep, everyone's answered that as no. As we've just explained, they can be for anybody. Anybody can do an apprenticeship. I did mine a few years ago, and I'm definitely not 18 anymore. um, they're for those who do not do well in school. Everyone's put no, great, yeah. It's not just about those that don't do well in school. It's about maybe those that decided on a career change as well. We have quite a few apprentices that have come maybe from a completely different sector, decide that actually early years is now for them, and they're starting out on that qualification, or actually they're just more of a hands-on learner. Question 4, it is poorly paid. We've got a mixture of comments there. Some say yes, some say no. We are aware that obviously the apprenticeship wage does appear low at the beginning. So, I mean, currently I think it's £7.55, isn't it? And it's going up to £8 an hour in April. But there is an opportunity after that apprenticeship is completed that they do have opportunity to earn a much higher wage. And also, a setting doesn't have to pay them the apprenticeship wage, even if they're on an apprenticeship. I've got a few settings where they still pay them the minimum wage for their age. So that is obviously a choice for yourselves. It is a cost saving if you pay that wage. I know at the beginning some think that is maybe discourages some from taking the apprenticeship, but actually they've got those opportunities if they achieve that qualification to then go on to a much higher wage. They're not the same job opportunities. If you go to the apprenticeship route, it won't give me a career. You will put no for that. Yeah, that's great. It does definitely give you different opportunities and career routes. For example, our director of early years at Realise herself started out as a level 2 apprentice. She's worked her way all the way through, working in nurseries to management to an assessor, trainer, and now the director of a training provider. So yeah, they can give lots of opportunities. They're not as good as a college course or degree. Everyone's put no. I'm happy to hear that. Yeah, sometimes people think that actually they're not as detailed, but if you have seen an apprenticeship before or done one, you'll know that the standard, the quality is there. And actually it does sometimes suit people a lot better, doing those hands-on learning and meeting the learning styles and needs as well of people. So thank you for all your polls there. That's great. I'll just close that. So working with you to help you grow. We've been talking about how we can support. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the different kinds of qualifications and levels briefly for you all. So we've got the level 2 early years practitioner apprenticeship. So this apprenticeship is 12 months practical plus a 3 months endpoint assessment. And that is giving them all those skills in for example, safeguarding, the child development, using the EYFS, and preparing them for that endpoint assessment. The level 3 early years educator apprenticeship is 14 months practical generally, and then the 3 months endpoint assessment. Again, that is giving them all those essential skills and knowledge, but it is really building on the level 2 as well. So they're going in a lot more depth around things like theories, curriculum, using the EYFS to support key children, and really preparing them so that they're used then as a qualified member of staff and in ratio. And we've got our level 5. So we offer a couple of level 5s within early years. We have an early years specialist apprenticeship. That is an 18-month programme plus 3 months endpoint assessment. And that early years specialist programme is more for those that are then developing into those roles of, for example, a room leader or a deputy. And they're taking on more responsibilities around curriculum development, teaching, leadership skills. Our level 5 nursery manager is again 18 months programme plus that endpoint assessment, but that extends on all of the early years and going in depth on things like child development, curriculum, pedagogy, but it gives you all of those things and skills that you might not have previously. When people sometimes go into the manager role, they maybe have not previously had to deal with finance and budgets and prepare for Ofsted and all of those things. So that's what's contained within the level 5. At Realise Training, we do offer a range of other programmes aside from apprenticeships as well. So we've got some adult skills qualifications, and we have some skills boot camps for Senko training as well. So there's a whole variety of things which I can send information about if anyone's interested later. But I've done enough talking. I am just going to show you this short clip. It's about a minute and a half, just to hear from one of our apprentices of what she had to say about the apprenticeship and how it's benefited her.
My name's Mia Godfrey. I'm on a level 2 apprenticeship. I think that the apprenticeship route was the best route for me, since that I did go to college and I was doing childcare in college, and I was on a placement and stuff like that, and I just found it wasn't really for me. I was more better with hands-on work and just being there and doing it that way. If one of my friends was thinking about starting an apprenticeship, I would tell them to go for it, since I think if they want actual experience in the job, I think that it's better for them because they can go and do some things that are hands-on, which I think with the college course that way through it, I think it's a lot harder because you're having to learn everything through someone just telling you what to do instead of showing you how to do it. I do think the level 2 is a valuable qualification because it's always something you can go back into, and I think that it's a job that you can find your feet very well if you're with the right nursery and the right people. The difference the apprenticeship has made in my life, it's made me more confident, like even just like going out and doing things on my own, because I never really used to be like that. I always used to like kind of get someone else to come with me. But I think you get your own independence, because in the room you're obviously doing things independently, you're choosing your own activities, you've got your own leeway. If you're considering a career in early years, I'd say go for it. I'd say go get the apprenticeship, since I do think it is the best route for you to take. If you'd like any more information, you can get in touch with realisetraining.com.
Thank you. So that's just from me, one of our level 2s. And it's not just about, like we say, gaining those knowledge, skills, behaviours of the qualification. It's also given her those life skills. Her confidence is built as well. So really lovely to hear. And obviously we have a lot of other apprentices. I can't play you all the videos. I had lots to choose from, but others that have maybe gone on to level 5 and earlier specialists in management, and how that's benefited them as well.
My name's Mia.
I apologise. That's I'm just going to try and move on from that part. So I did just want to share with you as well that Realise have an EY app, an early years app. It's a free app for anyone that's in a independent or small settings and providers. The app provides a range of support, and also you can request, you just go to Google or the App Store. You don't even have to have an apprentice with us. It's free and open to anybody that's in early years. It is for managers, not just for apprentices. It's just for the managers of the settings, but it's there to give support and guidance and help. What we do find with a lot of smaller or independent nurseries is they struggle maybe because they haven't got maybe all the infrastructure of support and guidance and help that maybe some of the larger groups have. So with included in there, we have like a resource library, lots of different subjects covered on there. So things like supporting your curriculum, how to budget and finance, preparing for your new Ofsted framework, all of those kind of things. We also deliver on their webinars. So I know coming up in the next month or two, we've got our IT specialist who's talking about GDPR and online safety in settings. We've got Laura Hodges, HR consultancy, talking about leading with joy. So there's lots of different subjects, and there's also a discussion forum, a chat option where it's basically used like a community for us to share ideas, ask questions, get help and support. So again, I just wanted to make you aware that that's available for anyone if they'd like it. Is there any other questions from anybody about anything I've covered or anything generally?
I don't think there's any questions been posted in the chat. I mean, obviously, I hope the chat's working, but nobody's posted a question in the chat. So I think I've definitely asked my questions as I've gone along. I'm naughty like that, Nola, but when you think of it, you've got to ask it, especially at this time of night. By Wednesday, you can't do it any other way. But you know, it's been very useful to sort of refresh my knowledge on apprenticeships and what's involved, and I'm sure my team will enjoy watching this on a catch up as well, especially when it comes to things like the hours that have changed, you know, over the length of time we've had apprenticeships. You know, that it isn't always the case that things stay the same with apprenticeships, is it?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time this evening. So if there
No,
isn't any,
yeah.
you've got you've got comments, but you haven't got questions. There you go.
Oh, no, thank you so much, everybody. But again, if there is any questions, I've just popped on the details for Realise that you can use the QR code, takes us straight to the website. Imogen and Harry have also got my contact details. So if anybody does have anything in particular, I know sometimes I do. I go away from something, I'll think about it for an hour or two, and I think, oh, I should have
I should
asked.
have asked that. Yeah, we all do that.
Please
We're all
feel
very
free
guilty
to
of
reach
that.
out in the next few days or weeks. And if anybody wants any more information about any of the apprenticeships we offer or training, I can send that out as well.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank
But
you ever so much, Nola.